Hello and welcome back to Dreamloop DeVlogs. This week we're going to talk about backlogs, and everybody has a massive backlog, of course. I know I do, and Ville probably has as well. And I just checked my own backlog because I have some of it on my phone actually.
Holy shit,
I once started actually writing down my backlog games, but this is even a fraction of them.
This isn't even my final form.
This is not even my final form. And there's games here that I know I want to play, but today we're going to find out why we don't actually sit down and play the damn games. There's games like Mass Effect 3 and Metal Gear Rising Revengeance and Metro 2033. That series actually has a new game coming out, and I really want to play the original series before that comes, because I know I will like it, most likely. But there's something wrong somewhere, because I'm not playing it right now.
Oh, that's because we're doing this.
Yeah, maybe we'll just cut right now and we'll play it. And then there's also Wolfenstein: The New Order, but I had a technical issue with that game, so maybe that's.
And there's also a new Colossus now.
Yeah, that's also one, but I'm of course waiting to complete the first one before that. But why do you think we have backlogs, and why don't we play games that we know are going to be good, most likely?
I mean, well, there's a fuckload of games.
Yeah.
That's one thing. For me, at least, it's that I tend to be more interested in bigger games. You know, like I you know, the games that I have in my backlog are like games that take up quite a bit of playing, you know, to beat. There's
like single player games?
Yeah, single player games.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. Because like, I mean, you don't really get multiplayer games to your backlog, because with multiplayer games you can kind of like at a LAN party or whatever, you hop in, you play it for a bit, and then you know whether you like it or not, and you've seen it. You know, you don't have to, unless you're super enthusiastic. You don't have to put that much time in. But for example,
and there might not even be an end to a
exactly,
game.
exactly. And like, and there might also not be that much new stuff that pops up. Like take something like Rocket League.
Yeah.
Which is like it's a really good game, but you don't necessarily need to play more than a couple of matches of Rocket League, and you have a pretty damn good idea what it's about and whether you like it or not. You know, and you get to kind of like cross it off the list. Like I played Rocket League.
Yeah, of course.
But then take something like, I don't know, Witcher 3. Like, you know, I played Witcher 3 for something like 80 hours and I haven't even beaten it.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking I have to go back, but with that one it's like, I guess I would have to start over, and now I know it's at least 80 hours. 80 hours, I mean, it's not that much. You know, you can do that in a month. Like, even if you don't play that much.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the thought of the time investment, really.
Yeah, and for me it's also the time investment, and more precisely the fact that I sort of feel this respect for the game, that I want to not just play it for 20 minutes in a hurry and then get on with other things I have to do, but instead I would like to sit down and really somehow immerse myself in the game. But lies the problem that we don't always have time for that. Yeah. But we shouldn't let that become like a total stop to playing the game. We should actually really just sometimes put that one single hour to the game and enjoy it for that time, and then come back when there's time.
Yeah, it's better than being stuck on Reddit for an hour, whatever.
Yes.
At least from the context of working through your backlog. Yeah. That is the thing. And then the other thing is that these games tend to be like, you know, the games that go to my backlog tend to also be ones where there's quite a bit to them, so to speak. Like even, well, take Witcher 3 again, like it's a good example, because mechanically it's not that complex, but I mean, I'm also very much of a min-maxer when I play games, and you know, it does have the skill tree or whatever, and you know what gear when I want to use, stuff like that. So when I get into something, I want to really get into it. I want to figure out all the systems. I want to figure out, you know, how do I, you know, what are the options I have, on which one do I want to pick, stuff like that. You know, on top of it already being a long game, stuff like that, it's quite an investment. So often I end up defaulting to games that I already know. I guess it's also, of course, a part of, you know, growing older. You can like go back to the classics, but it's still like, it tends to be the games that I tend to put the most time into these days are like very specific indie games that are really easy to approach, but you can put a lot of time into, and you can keep going back to like for example, now I had a 5-day LAN party and we basically only played modded Terraria because it's so easy to get into, and you can always start over, stuff like that. Like But but of course also that's that it was a LAN party, so it has to be a multiplayer game. So you cannot do Witcher 3 there, but it's like.
Do you mostly play single player or multiplayer games? Is there a clear divide?
I would like to say I mostly play single player games, but honestly I mostly play co-op games.
Yeah.
Like when I really think about it. Like for me, I need to be able to play it solo, but I also need to be able to play with friends. And for me, like a really big motivator is the ability to have like a bit of a friendly competition going on. Like I tend to even do it with single player games. Like whenever, so take Witcher 3, I was playing it at the same time with a couple of friends and we would talk like, what did you do, what did I do? Or then there's even like games that I would almost call co-op games in a way, like Skyrim, a couple of friends, my brother and a friend and I have been playing through Skyrim. That's one where you start your playthroughs roughly at the same time, and you're all the time talking like I went there and did that, and I went there and did that. And you're comparing, and
it becomes like a conversation. Did you find that secret in that?
And it's almost as if you're playing, together, even though you're not.
Yeah.
It's co-op by proxy, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Recently, I've been thinking about more and more about my experiences in gaming when I was a child, and many times. We would play single-player games together with friends.
Yeah.
Like maybe I would go to a friend's place and we would play, like for example, Thief, the Dog Project, or Rainbow Six games, and stuff like that. We wouldn't actually play split-screen multiplayer that much. We would play single-player games together, and now I come to realize that it's actually quite fun. I like doing it. There's something special in it.
I mean, definitely, if you look at, for example, how much Let's Plays people watch, and it's essentially kind of like the same thing, but better because you're with your friends, and you can still interact. Like, I always, when I was a kid, I used to be the person who didn't mind watching.
Yeah.
Because it let me theorize, it let me try to come up with things, stuff like that, and somebody else was making the inputs, and I didn't mind. Like, I really enjoyed that, We did stuff like, I remember doing, like, original Half-Life, and because it has these puzzles, and we're trying to figure out what if you do this, and what if you shoot that, and hey, wait, can we use the grenade launcher on the assault rifle, stuff like that, like it's it's cooperative. Like I think it all wraps around that. To me, it all wraps around to the fact that there needs to be some sort of collaborative or cooperative element for me to really get into stuff. If there isn't, then what tends to happen is that I either force myself to push through the main story or the whole thing sort of fizzles because I get so much motivation from comparing to other people and I mean I'm not necessarily proud of it, but one thing I like to do is I like to be the best of a group of people or whatever, like or pick a thing in the game and do that really well, for example. Like we do a ton of Diablo 3 whenever a season starts with a bunch of people, and we are always like, I'm gonna pick this class and I'm gonna pick this class, and then we're like pushing on the leaderboards and like comparing and helping each other and stuff. And I tend to play a lot of it solo, but there's always the option to do co-op. And it adds so much, even if I don't end up doing that much. Like last season, not the current one, previous one, mostly I was playing. And then I was boosting the other guys every now and then and stuff like that. But it was mostly me playing. But if it was just me, I would have stopped. But there's always the option of I can't wait to show that I got this item. And,
I understand. Yeah. And also one thing that came to my mind about backlogs. You said that you like to play these big games, and I do too. I know. But I just noticed that I still have Hotline Miami 2 on my backlog, and that's weird because that most certainly is not a big game in the same sense as Skyrim is. So it should be relatively easy to pick that up and play it for a small time. But again, there comes the fact that I really, really like the first one. So I guess I'm kind of waiting for the perfect golden moment to start playing it, which I shouldn't do, because then it will stay on my backlog forever.
Yeah, I mean it's like similarly. I have I have entered the dungeon. I like booted it and saw that it works, but I'm waiting for it because I kind of want to play it through with my cousins. Actually, this is kind of like a nice fallback to previously in this conversation, because I like to play the way we did when we were kids. One person playing and we switched theirs. Like I would really like to play into the dungeon like that. And similarly, we did most of Shovel Knight. When it originally came out, we didn't do the last levels. I still want to do that with my cousin, so that's in the backlog. I want to do Hollow Knight, stuff like that. Like these are all games that are pretty easy to pick up, and don't take, but somehow you don't end up picking those up again, because for me it's like I want to experience those with specific people, or it's just again like there's certain barrier, like there's various things that come into the way of you. Just if you end up picking them up, you end up doing them, but you just
I also have Stalker Call of Pripyat. I haven't completed that one. It's kind of related to Metro in the setting is somewhat similar. There are similar themes, but Call of Pripyat is still unfinished for me. And I played through the first 2 Stalker games. I liked them. They were kind of buggy, and
that's kind of part of it.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. But I really enjoyed those, and I started Call of Pripyat. It's not like 0%, but I think I'm somewhere like halfway through that game, and maybe I'll play that. But always when looking at the backlog list, it feels like this immense mountain. I don't know. I have like also Dragon Age 2. I never played that. There's so many games.
Like I've almost just given up. For me, it's more like I every now and then think about, there's this and there's that and there's that. And now that I think about it, there's a lot of games where I stop near the end. But this I've always done. For me, it's always been like, I think because on top of there being like, everything we've discussed here, there's also thing when you approach the end of a big game, you don't want it to end.
Yeah.
Because then there's the whole like, what do I pick up next, and stuff like that, and all the other stuff too. Like it's sad to see it go, so to speak, like stuff like that. So you kind of like you delay in the very end.
Yeah. What is it about the rolling of the end credits that makes some kind of a magic disappear?
Yeah.
I don't know, because, for example, like one of my favorite games of all time, Deus Ex Human Revolution. There's always this sense of something really ending when you get to the end. The first time I played it, I was like, I really did the delaying thing. I did every quest I could and spent a lot of time just hanging around and looking at the levels and trying to find secrets and everything. But then when the final, after the final boss, the game ended, and then I felt like, wow, this was an amazing game. I want to play it again, and I did, but it didn't feel quite the same. And there's always still this little magical, some kind of immersiveness that happens every time I play the game, but it's not the same as the first time.
Yeah, of course, because everything is new, everything is fresh, and you don't know what's gonna happen and stuff like that. Like there's definitely some magic to it, and I think being aware of that is also one of the things that keeps you from completing things.
Yeah.
And because so often the end is disappointing, and that's another really sad problem, is that a lot of the games that I completed, so to speak, I might have fond memories of them, but I don't have fond memories of how they ended.
Yeah.
And I think there's 2 ways about it. Either the game roll credits and that's it, or the game kind of like there's a post game whatever you can. But what tends to happen then is that it sort of like fizzles out. Like you keep going through, and at some point you get bored. And something like for me the best example of this is Borderlands 2, where it kind of has end game content, so to speak, and they kept adding stuff. But like the more I played, the less I liked the game, really.
Yeah.
And like its design flaws start to shine through and stuff like that. And then in the end, even though I played some ridiculous amount of it, like hundreds and hundreds of hours, in the end I was like, I mean, actually now that I think about it, now I would say I really enjoyed it. But like immediately after being done with it, so to speak, for a while I was like, that game,
Yeah, so that was a really good point, that when you play a game very much, the design flaws start to show themselves. And I started thinking maybe some games are designed to be sort of rushed through. Maybe, I don't know, but it sort of would make sense.
Like one actually, there's one that I can think of quite nice was Bioshock Infinite. Like I just pretty much, because at some point I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna beat this thing.
Yeah.
And I did. And the conclusion, I found it quite satisfying, and it was done, and I no need to do anything else. And then they started doing DLC stuff like that. I was like, I don't care, I'm done,
Yeah.
And then Witcher 2 was similar. Witcher 2 for me was a really big surprise. I never played the first game. Just bought a new computer for, I think, Skyrim. but Skyrim hadn't quite come out yet, but Witcher 2 did, if I remember correctly. And I was like, well, fuck it, I guess I'm gonna be playing with this one, because I saw it like on a stream or something. I was like, this looks quite cool. And I played it, and I did some side questing, but then at some point I was like, I noticed myself like, fuck, I'm trying to do everything. Like, I remember in the very first area, first chapter I did everything, and then I got the second one when I started getting better gear, and I sort of realized something clicked, like, hey, I don't need to grind for gear because I'm gonna get better stuff from the vendors in the next area, so I can just enjoy the world and the story. And I rushed through it, and I immensely enjoyed the experience. There's a lot of stuff I didn't do, but I was done with it. It had an ending. I know there's a lot of endings, but I was like, this was I had a lot of fun, and
that's the same I did with Mass Effect 2 actually. Yeah. I first played it as a role-playing game, and I tried to really mess around with the gear in the game and the inventory, but then I realized those aspects aren't really implemented in Mass Effect 2 as greatly as they were in the first one. So then I started playing it as almost like an action movie, and then it started clicking. Then it started feeling like, okay, let's go.
It's just a bit sad for some games where they like are supposed to be role-playing games, and in a computer role-playing game or whatever, like usually expect the gear to matter and the mechanics to matter and stuff like that. But then it really doesn't.
Yeah, that's us in the old school.
Yeah. At least for example, in Witcher 2, your choices matter, so there's that aspect of it. But a lot of these modern games are like, it's all just an illusion, and for somebody who likes to play games like I do, it's just a hindrance because it implies that there's something to learn there, there's something to master, there's there's gonna be challenges, there's gonna be a challenging boss fight or optional content or something. I really need to figure out how this system works.
Yeah.
There isn't anything. It's just there to be a time sink so that you take a little bit more time to play through the game, because somehow apparently games are required to be long, of certain length.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that another time.
Because it's just gonna spiral into infinite.
But as one final thing, everybody remember that Awesome Games Done Quick 2018 is gonna start. I think it was on Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday. Hopefully, I mean, this is gonna come out before that. So yes, next Sunday.
Yeah. So remember to check that out. It might be one way for you to maybe go through your backlog if you don't mind just watching speedruns, and in any way it's going to be amazing.
Well, as long as it's not a story-oriented game. It's a story-oriented game, depending of course. Like I mean, there can be stuff like Metal Wolf Chaos speedrun from 1 year that was amazing, and you saw all the cutscenes, so that was a good one.
Yeah. But this year there won't be actually Super Metroid Run, but there's at least 3 Zelda games, including Breath of the Wild, and
there was a bunch of. I think they're doing Ocarina of Time 100%. Yeah. So you actually get to see the game and not just like picking up hunting for deku nuts and then just teleporting to the final castle, or however any percent Ocarina of Time goes these days. But check that out, and we might actually talk about that next week.
Since it's still going to be going on during the next week. So have fun and see you next time.